Hi everyone. Today we did get that continuation higher as we expected. Gap up, a little bit of chop, continuation higher. Big sell mid-session, more aggressive than I thought we would see. I assume there would be some kind of pullback, but this is the 15-minute chart. You can see we pulled back to the 144 EMA, did find a nice base in here, super oversold, rallied back, ended up positive on the day. So just a little bit choppy, but overall positive. Let's take a quick look at the charts as we head into the weekend. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, we got Trump ending all discussions with Canada over the digital services tax they have, Ottawa trying to implement this digital services tax on US tech firms, and Trump said terminating all discussions with Canada immediately on the back of this, and they said they will be letting Canada know the tariff they will be paying to do business in the United States over the next 7-day period. So the turmoil does seem to be continuing. We've talked about it. This is right now just a stopgap. I think there's a lot more uncertainty than markets are pricing in, but for now, markets do not seem to care. We did see just a little bit of a hiccup here, but this is something to follow over the next couple days. If this is kind of the way that the United States is going to handle these discussions going forward with other entities, maybe we see a little bit more turmoil for markets, but for now, this is just Canada, and markets didn't seem to care too much. Moving over to Fear and Greed Index, 65 from a 61. We are still neutral on the momentum indicator finally after months of being in fear or extreme fear. Strength ticking up here slightly, breadth flattening out over today, still extreme greed on that indicator, put call ratio, basically no movement there. Same here with volatility moving slightly down, safe haven demand moving slightly up. Interesting to see both of these going higher. Bonds went higher, stocks went higher, everything's rallying a little bit. And then junk bonds stepping back into greed here as this spread tightens up just a little bit more. Moving over to the economic calendar, PCE data did come in a little hotter than expectations, but again, markets just do not seem to care too much about inflation. This was hotter than expectations, and I said yesterday if this came in a little bit hot, markets might be concerned, but they just weren't. They went higher on the back of this, nobody cared, and then you can see the Michigan inflation data. Right now it has 5% for 1 year from now in June, which is a massive number. If we actually saw 5% on the inflation read for 1 year from now, I think markets would be significantly lower, but right now they do not believe this number. And then looking at Atlanta Fed GDP, also a little bit lower than expectations here, 2.9 versus the 3.4, which is fine. I think markets would be okay with that number as well. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, you can see just another gap and go on the session, up another 0.5%. Still believe we are going to get to this trend line here, target around that 620 to 621 area. Momentum bullish. RSI is overbought, so we finally did get there. We expected to get there today, and we did at a 70.17. Can it continue a little bit further, touch that level, and then see what happens? That remains to be seen. You can see that move that we talked about in the intro, a little bit of a move down here. Was that triggered mostly by that news around the Canada trade talks? Potentially, but look at the volume, huge volume coming through at the end of the session. Lots of buying pressure, and we did continue higher on that. Pretty sideways choppy in the after hours, not expecting anything out of that, but I would say this is likely to continue. Remember, this is not a topping pattern. Even if this was a turning point here, we would need to see something a little bit more convincing over the next couple days. So I would look for bullish to at least sideways choppy from current price. Moving over to the SPY charts here on the Tasty charts, you can see that volume coming through. There was a big sell, of course, lots of volume there, and then immediately seeing that reversal bar, huge volume, even bigger volume than on the sell bar. So I would say this is likely to be bought up, and I would expect this to continue, but it was enough to put us into bearish conditions there. On the hourly chart, your trailing stop now is 617.29. The previous trailing stop was 612.46. So it'll be interesting to watch those two levels, see which direction we go from here. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, barely looks like a blip here. We did hit overbought conditions, hitting that upper ATR band as we expected that we would, and a very timely news release to push us back down to that 8 EMA, touched the 8 EMA, and then bounced. Again, volume coming in, pushing that price back up. So not expecting a whole lot out of it. I think it'll be a short-term retracement. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same kind of thesis here, gap up and rally just a little bit. Did retrace again mid-session, just like on the SPY charts, came back down, came in and bounced. Volume was actually kind of ramping on the sell, which was interesting, and then the big volume coming through on the buy as well, pushing us right back into this zone. Is this the start of a topping pattern? You always have to kind of entertain that as a possibility. I don't really believe that to be the case, but something to continue to watch here as we push into these next couple trading days. Just want to see what that looks like. Pretty much right in that same zone. So are we kind of through here? Potentially. Is this still a zone to watch? I still believe that it is, and I would still say bullish based off of this structure here. Moving over to the Tasty charts here for the Qs, you can see we did hit that overbought condition, that upper ATR band 549.25 did go up slightly, and then we pulled back on that news. You can see the volume did come in at that 8 EMA, right in line with that bounce, and then rally through after hitting overbought conditions. Again, a little bit timely on that news announcement. And then looking here at the hourly chart, you do have hitting that overbought condition. Same thing here, taking out the trailing stop, so you're in bearish conditions on the hourly chart. That was 445.82. I think this is going to be an interesting area going forward. And then your trailing stop to the downside, if you are trying to trade this bearish, would be 551.39. I don't really think that's going to hold up, but you can see the volume, big sell volume, big buy volume, continued back up into this kind of mid-range. So probably sideways choppy a little bit, but looking for a push through back to that bullish side. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow here, you can see the Russell was up just 7 cents. We did go right to that next trend line and then reject a little bit. So that continues to be an interesting zone of resistance. We'll see if this does pull back. The level 214.78 did continue to hold choppy wicks in each direction, was higher than this previous high here, so still bullish structure, still holding the level. But look at the volume coming in, definitely some selling volume, momentum flattening out here. Does this continue to go? Definitely more concern from the Russell on the trade talks, in my opinion. And then looking at the Dow, just continues to ramp. Really strong actually here on the Dow, up about 1%. After hours even more, looking for that 441.43 level. I think we'll get there. And then just above that is your all-time high. I have 445.16. The high is closer to 446.50 or so. Momentum bullish RSI, getting towards that overbought condition. Moving over here to the Mag 7, you can see we went right to that level, 330.67. The closing price was 330.51. So right there at the zone, pulling back a smidgen after hours. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, almost overbought there at a 68.75. Does it pull back from this area? Certainly a possibility. Wicks into the zone have been sold on every iteration. Is this one more of those? I think it remains to be seen. You do have to entertain this as a very long-term topping pattern. If this ends up being like that, that is something that we need to watch for. Of course, you never know until we start to see that structure roll and everything does look bullish here, but something to consider over the next couple months. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple basically unchanged, just 8 cents. Then you got Microsoft pulling back a smidgen here as well, down $1.50, nothing crazy. Microsoft continues to be a rocket ship. I do see a lot of chatter online of people liking Apple in here because it's been holding this base for a while. It does seem to be kind of breaking just slightly to the upside, and I do kind of agree with that. I am sympathetic to the potential that Apple could see an upswing here, but I just don't love it. I don't love Apple here. I think there's absolutely a possibility that this just continues to chop sideways. I think you sell it in the kind of 212 to 217 area. If you want to trade it for that kind of a move, certainly a possibility, but I think it's equally as possible that you kind of break this structure here and push back to some of these lows, potential all the way down to the kind of 172 area is a possibility. Right back in the lows we were at just a couple of months ago, but I think realistically this could go either way. Sell the highs, maybe buy the dips, but be cautious. A little bit more on the buying side in my opinion. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla continues to fade after the big pop on their robo-taxi news. Everything in that is going fine from what I've seen, so I'm not sure why it's selling off so aggressively, but right now, markets don't seem to love it nearly as much. And then you got NVIDIA. Maybe they're just putting money over to NVIDIA. Big rallies here, continues to go bullish. 1.76% continues to be price discovery and all-time highs over the last couple of days. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Both of these continue to look really nice here. Amazon up 2.85%. Google also up 2.2%, headed towards that 179.42 level. This was the zone we were looking for. 185 would be the next take profit in here. Amazon looking for 233 would be the next target there as well. And I do think these are both going to go. They both look really, really good. Huge volume coming through on Amazon as well. Big move there. Closed on the high. Everything looks good for both of those. Moving over to staples and discretionary, staples moved up about 0.5%, found a little bit of support in that 79.90 area. He said if it went 78.88 was the next level, but if it held, looking for a bounce above back to that 81.18 area. But the bigger story here, I think, is discretionary. It's a very nice day, 1.67%, right at the highs of this consolidation. If it gets above 219, I think we're going to 227. I do like that potential trade here. There's obviously some trend resistance that we're going to have to watch. Go ahead and extend these out here as a zone of resistance kind of in this 222, 223 area, but momentum bullish, RSI bullish. I do like this as a potential setup. If 219 goes, I think 227 is the next target. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth. Breadth is still hanging in there, no issues at all. Same consolidation ranges. 20-day did go back to 68.14, heading towards that 86.53 potential zone, and then no changes really here on 50-day. So nothing under the hood says that this rally is going to change, at least in the near term. Moving over to the dollar did sideways choppy price action, still did not get to that 96.85 level. Still think we are going to get a touch there before this kind of bottoms out, but you do have a little bit of consolidation here, a couple of wicks, a couple of buying pressures coming in around that 97 level, something to consider. Momentum is still bearish, RSI is still bearish, but eventually in this zone, I do believe it will see at least somewhat of a bounce. Moving over to bonds, finally saw a little bit of a pullback in this rally on bonds. Inside candle here for J&K, really no change to the structure though. I would expect this to continue. Inside candle can be a reversal candle, but you're not really at any kind of resistance. We did hit overbought conditions. That might be a little concerning. You do have a little bit of kind of choppy action in here. We didn't quite touch those levels though, so I wouldn't really expect it to reverse yet. And then looking at TLT, same kind of thesis, a little bit of volume coming through, a little bit of selling coming through. Either way, I would expect this to get bought up. I don't think we're going to return back down to this 83 area by any means. Maybe we get a pull back to this 85.90 level potentially, and then a bounce continuation. But either way, I think this is kind of the base. Maybe this is a left shoulder head, right shoulder. We get a bounce, retest, bigger continuation in the longer term over the next couple months potentially, but either way, I still like this as a structure. Moving over to the VIX. The VIX did finally kind of come into that area over the last 2 days as we expected that it would. Hasn't quite touched the trend line over the last 2 days. Should we see at least one more push down to that 1602 area? Possibly. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. Does it cut through here and go down to the 14.7 area? Absolutely a possibility. It's just this zone has been the zone of support over the last couple iterations of moving down into this area, seeing a bounce, down into this area, bounce, down into this area, bounce. So seems like every time we get here, we do see somewhat of a bounce, which is not usually good for equities. Is this another iteration? We're watching that closely. Moving over to my accounts, I was slightly positive on the session. You can see that here. I did have the Russell positions, made money on that. Took it off a little bit early. I could have held it through to the close. Didn't want to hold that risk, made money on it. And then I did hold this position here for the Monday at 214. I didn't put on another position for the Tuesday. I thought we could get a little better price on it. Maybe we do get a little bit more pullback. I'll keep an eye on it, but just wanted to be a little more cautious here. Either way, love to see that continuing to do well. And then the Q's position, more rallies here, more profits on the shares, a little bit more losses on the calls. But again, still below that max profit position. So just waiting for that credit to come in eventually. Max profit there is 550. We're still below it there at 549. So plenty of potential for this money to come in over the next month or so. And then of course, after hours, just a little bit of movement down, but not expecting anything out of that. So kind of neutral to bullish on the Qs, still bullish on the Russell. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the interaction with Canada. Will there be more disruption in the trade talks? Will we see market spikes to the downside? If there are any concerns with European Union trade talks or a potential break in the China trade talks, I think those are definitely risk factors that the market does not care about right now, but let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.